Well, welcome everybody. The time's up, the subscription business model for bookkeeping firms. I'm Ron Baker, and I'm thrilled to be back to the Successful Bookkeeper Conference. Last year, I think I talked to you about a couple different topics, and this was one of them. Today, I want to flesh out a little bit more about the subscription model and really point out some misconceptions out there about subscription. I hear a lot and see a lot written about subscription pricing. And this isn't just about changing your pricing. This is about a business model change. This is a completely different business model than value pricing or even hourly billing. Just like value pricing was a different business model than hourly billing, this is also a different business model. And that's really important to understand because as the late Andy Grove, founder of Intel, used to say, disruptive threats come inherently not from new technology, but from new business models. And that's how we see real disruption enter into any dynamic marketplace. So think about what Napster did to the music industry, and then think about how Steve Jobs at Apple responded to that threat by coming up with his iPod and his iTunes store and selling us music at $1 a song that we could put on his iPod and turn into playlists and play music that fit our mood. But then, of course, now the business model again has changed for music. And now most of us are subscribing to music, whether it's Spotify or Apple or Prime on Amazon, whatever it might be. So business models change. And a business model is defined by how your firm creates value for your customer and how your firm monetizes that value, or how you capture a share of that value that you create. Now, the capturing part deals with your pricing, but the creating part deals more with your business model. It deals more with your strategy and your positioning in the marketplace. What type of customer is the perfect fit for you, or a good fit for you, your so-called sweet spot. And this is why we're starting to see so many more bookkeepers beginning to niche, if you will, down and narrow their focus into a specific industry or a specific type of business, a specific demographic, such as gig workers. I know firms that do nothing but Uber and Lyft drivers. That's their specialty, or e-commerce, or microbreweries, or dentists. I mean, all sorts of different ways you can focus, but that's really all about your strategy and positioning, which are really fundamental to your business model. But a business model, again, is how you create value for your customers and how you capture that value, or a portion of the value, to be more specific. So what does that mean for subscription? What does a subscription business model mean? Well, the subscription business model means periodic recurring payments for frictionless, ever-increasing value and serial transformations. Now, I know that's a mouthful, but each word there is doing very heavy lifting. And it's kind of a suitcase phrase because it needs to be unpacked. Periodic recurring payments is usually monthly. Doesn't mean it has to be. There are, these are payment terms that you can structure. You can have a whole year prepaid. You could do, I know one firm in the States that is on subscription model that has a weekly payment term. And that works very, very well for them. But it's normally monthly with subscription. That seems to be the proper rhythm to build up payment and get the customer into the habit of just paying it. It's a monthly expense that shows up, and as long as the relationship is strong, then it's no big deal, and there's no more cognitive load about the pricing. Once they decide to subscribe, they've already undergone the cognitive load of thinking about, is the price worth the value to me? And then they're on kind of automatic pilot. And if you can keep them for 12 months, you've got a 90% chance of keeping them for life. Frictionless means that you're trying to make the relationship as frictionless as possible. You're trying to reduce hurdles. You're trying to reduce inconvenience. You're trying to surface simplicity. In other words, whatever they need, you're going to take care of, that you're capable of doing. This doesn't mean that you're going to do something that's outside of your expertise or something that you don't know how to do. Indeed, you have a professional duty not to do those things, because we have a due care duty as accountants, bookkeepers, CPAs. Doesn't matter what you are. If you're a professional, you have a due care duty. I do not want a general physician that dabbles in heart surgery to do my heart surgery. I want to go to a heart surgeon that does nothing but heart surgery. So there's that due care that's really important. We shouldn't be doing things that we don't know how to do. So it is okay to say no to a customer. We don't have the expertise in that, or we don't specialize in that. We don't do that type of work. This is why I love the medical profession, because it's so well defined what doctors do, but more importantly, what they don't do. You're not going to go to a cardiac surgeon and expect to get cancer treatment. You're not going to go to a general physician and expect to get a knee replacement or hip surgery, right? So we're defined by what we don't do and the services that we don't offer. And we'll talk more about that. But that's what we mean by frictionless. It's you're trying to make it very simple. Whatever the customer needs, whenever they need it, however they need it, it's going to be covered in their payment. And ever increasing value means that you're constantly adding new offerings or new ways to add value to your customers. This can be through innovation. This can be through more meetings. This could be by starting a lunch and learn where you talk about books, or you bring in outside speakers to talk about issues going on in your customer's industry, or whatever it might be, educational events, videos for education that you might put out. In other words, you're constantly enhancing your offering. Just like if you subscribe to Amazon, they're constantly adding benefits. Have you noticed that? They have more cities that are covered with same day delivery. They offer new music. They offer new Prime Video shows that we love to binge on and get addicted to. They offer more music and more podcasts and Kindle benefits and all sorts of things. You may not use them. You may not use any of them. But what it does is it throws a halo over the subscription price, and it completely justifies in the customer's mind, hey, yes, I'm not using that service now, but I might need it in the future. And if I do, and when I do, it'll be there for me. And the last thing is transformations, or what I call serial transformations, meaning we can do them over and over and over, right? And what I mean by transformations is that's when a professional, and mostly only professionals can do this, although that's changing as well. Many more businesses are getting into the transformation business, but professionals are already in a privileged position to guide their customers from where they are to some desired future state. And especially accounting professionals, we do this all the time. And yet we don't use this language of transformations. We talk about financial statements and better information and more up-to-date information to make better decision making. But when you really think about the outcomes and the transformations that you're providing to your customers, you're helping them sleep better at night. You're making them more financially literate about their money and their wealth. You're helping them plan for their retirement. You're helping them grow their business so it becomes more valuable when they go to sell it. You're helping them retire sooner if that's their goal. You're helping their kids get into college. You're helping them build their dream home, or maybe a dream second home. You're helping them take vacations. You're helping them work on their business, not just in it. You're doing all these things that are really transformations. They really have nothing to do with the services that you're performing. In this model, the services are a means to an end. They are not the end. They are not what's valuable to the customer. I'm not saying that they're not necessary. They are. But they're a means to an end. of creating these transformations. And we can do these transformations from womb to tomb. We have again the privileged position of being able to help our customers with these transformations from from womb to tomb, from the day they're born till the day they're gone, through estate planning and things like that. So it's a really privileged position to be in, and yet we don't use this language. We talk about efforts, and we talk about hours, and we talk about activities, and we talk about scope of work. Well, in the subscription model, there really is no scope of work, because again, it's not about the services. We're saying to the customer, whatever you need that we're capable of doing, that is within our wheelhouse, you're covered. You're just covered. And that gives them convenience and simplicity. You don't have to go to a department of paperwork to get a change order when scope changes. There is no scope under this model, because you're deliberately choosing the right customer that fits with your capabilities and your expertise and your niche. So I know this is a mouthful when it comes to defining what the subscription business model is, but it really does get to the essence. It's a periodic recurring payment for frictionless, ever increasing value and serial transformations. And when we say it's a different business model, that means kind of everything changes. And that starts even with the accounting. And I love to work with accountants because I can put this slide up relatively early in the presentation. This is the traditional income statement that you're all very familiar with, especially for an inventory type company that sells products. But then here's the subscription model income statement. And you can just see it's a different animal. It works differently. It starts with your annual recurring revenue. It backs out your churn. That's your lost customers. And so for every, you add up the revenue from those lost customers. Obviously, if this is annual, then it would be the full year's annual revenue from that customer that you lost. Or you could do this on a monthly basis as well, monthly recurring revenue. And then you categorize your expenses into themes and categories that allow you to compute certain KPIs that are particularly relevant to the subscription model. So cost of goods sold for us, professional firms, would be our labor. There's general and administrative, that would be your rent. Research and development would be education and other type of expenses that you incur to research things, could be technology or whatever. And then, of course, you've got your recurring profit, and your sales and marketing expense is your sales and your advertising and your marketing. And then you've got your net operating income. And then you add in new annual recurring revenue. These are customers that you added during the period. And the bottom line is not profit, it's ending annual recurring revenue. This is why ARR, as it's known, is such a major metric when people talk about subscription. They talk about MRR and ARR, monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue. This is a forward looking model. It's a forward directed business model, not a backwards looking model like the traditional P&L that you see on the left hand side. So not only is the accounting different, but the KPIs are different. And the great thing about the KPIs for a subscription business, because subscription business been around so long, we have already done the heavy lifting for the KPIs. And there are some really good free accessible reports where you can get KPIs that are looked at and used to evaluate subscription type businesses. Here are the most popular KPIs for subscription businesses. And that would include things like monthly recurring revenue, obviously, annual contract value, which is the amount of annual revenue, customer lifetime value, which is really the ultimate is in what we're trying to build in a subscription firm. What a subscription business is doing is creating customer lifetime value, basically annuities, if you think about it, lifetime annuities that are worth more than it costs to acquire them. That's really the ultimate goal. So we're not looking at profit per job. We're not looking at profit per customer. We're not looking at profit per hour. We're trying to build customer lifetime value. We're taking the entirety of the relationship and looking at that. We're not looking at the math of the moment. And that's what I really like about the subscription business, because it aligns with what this business is all about that we're all in, which is we're we're a relationship based business. And we say that, and I know we mean it. We're sincere when we say it. But folks, think about what we monetize with our current business model. Whether you're hourly billing or value pricing, you're monetizing the service. And on the other side of our mouths, we're saying, but the relationship is everything. But we're going to monetize everything that we do for you. We're going to nickel and dime you every time we have to do something. And that just doesn't jive. There's an incongruity there that just does not work. So customer lifetime value now, which has to be modeled, by the way, you can't pull this off the income statement. You have to model it. And there are various models out there that you can look at to compute this. But that's the biggest metric that we're trying to grow. That is basically replacing the bottom line. And this is, by the way, why you see so many unicorns, companies worth $1 billion or more. Most of them, dare I say almost all of them, are a subscription-based model, because subscription-based businesses have higher multiples. In other words, they're worth more when you go to sell them or exit than, say, a traditional transactional-based business, because transactional-based businesses simply aren't as worth as much, because they're not as predictable in terms of revenue. Then you've got customer acquisition costs, and that's where you have the sales and marketing, that you can use to compute that from the income statement. You've got your churn rate, of course, that the amount of customers and revenue that you lost from those customers. Various things, depending on the type of business. Other things that are looked at are like recency. When was the last time they visited your website or a portal? How often do they visit? And what type of volume do they engage in? Do they upload documents? Do they download? Do they watch videos? If you were a newspaper, you'd want to know how many articles they read, those types of metrics. And then, of course, you've got customer lifetime value. The rule of thumb should be greater than 3 times your customer acquisition. A 3-to-1 ratio of lifetime value is what the most successful subscription, or what it takes to be considered a viable, sustainable subscription model. The best businesses out there have an 8-to-1 ratio of those metrics. So the other thing I need to say about subscription KPIs is I hear a lot of firms now that tell me, oh yeah, I do subscription. We do subscription. Our customers pay us monthly. Well, folks, paying monthly doesn't mean you're on subscription model. There's a lot more to the model than simply being paid monthly. That's a payment term. That tells me nothing about, are you doing frictionless, value creation? Are you constantly plussing, adding to your services? Those types of things. So my acid test for firms that tell me, yes, we do subscription is, do your customers know they subscribe? Because a lot of times firms will tell me they're doing subscription, but their customers have no idea. Well, I'll tell you what, I bet you can name for me everything that you subscribe to, not only in your business, in your firm, QuickBooks, Xero, whatever it might, all the software, all the apps that you use. I bet you can tell me everything you subscribe to in your personal life as well, whether it's Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, BarkBox, whatever it might be that you subscribe to. You can tell me you subscribe to those things. And in fact, what that means is you need to be able to cancel at any time as well. The customer needs to be able to cancel at any time. There are no lock-ins. There are no minimum periods with subscription. And that's kind of a hard thing to swallow. But if you think about it, when we recommended you move from hourly billing to value pricing, one of the things I spent a lot of time talking about was this concept of a value guarantee, where you tell the customer, if you're not satisfied, only pay for the value that you think you got. Well, in the subscription model, the value guarantee has been replaced with the cancel button by making it very simple at any time for the customer to cancel your subscription. That is counterintuitively enough, if they have an easy exit, they're less likely to leave. I know it sounds counterintuitive. It's a psychological thing. I can't say I understand it all, but I can tell you in my personal life, I have two things I subscribe to that I rarely use. What's the logic of that? That's not rational at all. And I'm a CPA, for crying out loud, or a recovering CPA. I should know better. But here's the logic: I might need them. I might need them. And when I do need them, I'm thrilled that they're there. So it's kind of like when you're packing, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And we're willing to pay for that because it's sort of a peace of mind. And it's very interesting psychology. But the other thing that you have to do is you have to continuously plus your offering. I use this term plussing, which I borrowed from Walt Disney, because he used to say we have to continuously plus the experience of the park, add new things, add new parades, add new attractions, add new events and things like that to delight and keep our customers coming back, because he knew how important it was to get a customer to come back. It's much cheaper to have loyal customers than to have to go out and pound the pavement to get new ones. In fact, the AICPA tells us it costs 11 times more to acquire a customer than it does to keep one. So really, this is all about customer retention, and plussing your offering by offering new services like we discussed can be a great way to do that and to reduce your churn. And then, of course, I ask firms, what's your ending ARR balance? If they can't tell me that, then I know they're not even doing the accounting right for their subscription business. So this is why it's so important to get your head wrapped around the idea that this isn't just about pricing. This is about the way you create value for your customers. It's a different operating model. It's got a different revenue model. It's got a different profit formula. We're not looking at bottom line anymore. If I go back to the income statement just for a minute, what you can see here, let me go back to the income statement. If for instance, the net operating income that you see down there of 10, if that was zero, that would be okay, because that means you're plowing all your money back in to growing your number of subscribers. And as long as your bucket is not leaking, in other words, as long as your churn rate's not going up, in the wrong direction, then you can invest all your operating income back into the business to grow, if that is indeed your desire. So this is just a completely different profit formula and revenue formula. So, and that takes us to the foundational principles of your firm's business model. So there are some things we have to talk about when we talk about the business model. It's kind of comprised of, I like to think of it as being comprised of these four things. First off, your purpose. This is Simon Sinek. This is Start With Why. If you haven't watched Simon Sinek's TED Talk, please do. It's very good. It's about 22 minutes, and it's excellent. So I'm going to take it for granted that all of you have figured out your purpose, because your purpose is bigger than tactics. It's bigger than even your strategy. It's the choice to pursue your destiny. Why does your firm exist? And why should anybody care? And why do you get out of bed every day? What is your purpose? The overall thing that drives you. It's your moral DNA. It's what you believe without having to think. And I love that definition from this book by Nikos. And then, so I'm taking your purpose as a given, and I'm not talking about that anymore. Then we go to your strategy. And your strategy it's not a plan, folks. A plan is something that's predictable. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. That's strategy is where are you going to play and how are you going to win? And my favorite definition is it's strategy is the rare and precious skill of staying one step ahead of the need to be efficient. And that comes from Jules Goddard, who's a professor in the UK who wrote this book on common sense, common nonsense. And what I like about this is this treadmill that we all seem to be on with workflow and project management. We need to be more efficient. No, you don't. You need to sit back and be more effective because this is a relationship business. And while we can be efficient with things, technology, computers, all of that, we have to be effective with people. I've never heard anybody define their marriage as efficient. And in fact, it would scare me if I did, because it's not about efficiency. It's about effectiveness. And if we're priced right and we get the right customers, then we can afford to be inefficient. And how neat is that to always have spare capacity, either for better customers or for taking care of our current customers that need things in a hurry. The last thing any of us want to hear from our dentist, if we have a bad toothache, is, I can see you in 2 weeks. No, 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 no. I expect my professionals, all of them, doctors, eye doctors, you name it, to have capacity to handle me in an emergency situation or when I really need them. And why wouldn't we want to do that? That's our chance to put on the Superman cape and to shine, basically. So your strategy is really important. And you really have to think about, where are we going to play and how are we going to win? What's going to set us apart from the other firms? And right along with your strategy is your positioning. And my colleague, Tim Williams, who wrote a great book called Positioning for Professionals, says a compelling positioning strategy lives at the intersection of two crosshairs. Be something for someone. Don't try and be all things to all people. Don't try and be McDonald's and a high-end steakhouse. They both sell beef, but they have different positioning strategies. And what I find with a lot of accountants and bookkeepers is they don't like to say no to anybody. And so they'll take any customer, even if it's not a great fit, even if it doesn't fit in with their focus or their niche, they'll take it because they don't want to turn any revenue away. It's like if we were veterinarians, I think our offices would have a sign outside that says, veterinarian and taxidermist. That way we could say, either way, you get your cat back. Well, you can't do that. Positioning and strategy is all about trade-offs. Again, your firm is defined by the services you don't perform and the customers you don't have. That's a really important thing to understand. And it's the same with positioning. Positioning requires you to make trade-offs. You can't be all things to all people. You don't want to be all things to all people, because then you end up paying a complexity tax, basically. I mean, you have to understand the tech stack for restaurants and construction. Oh, and you have a doctor over here and you have a dentist over there. It's just too confusing. Nobody can keep up with it. It makes it hard to hire good talent. But if you're focused on a particular niche or a particular type of customer, then it's very easy to understand their tech stack, and to keep up with the trends and issues going on in their industry or profession. It just makes life easier. And this is why the highest growth firms are all niched. And by the way, the most profitable firms in the world are niched. And that's been true since I entered this profession in '84. And it was true 30 years before I entered the profession. All the data I've seen from the most profitable firms, they're all niched. They all have a very, very specific focus. They do not try and be all things to all people. They don't say we're a full service bookkeeping firm or we're a full service accounting firm. There's no such thing as full service. And customers don't buy full service. They buy a specific type of expertise from you. And that's why if you're a specialist in their industry, you're going to be perceived as being higher value. And then the last part of your business models are your revenue and pricing model questions. Now, the pricing model is pretty simple. That is, how much are you asking your customers to pay you, right? What's the dollar amount, basically? But the revenue model question is a bit more open-ended and is a lot more relevant, and it's a lot harder to answer. And that is, what are you asking your customers to pay for? Now, it may seem obvious, folks, but I don't think it is. We say, well, it's services. Some firms still say, well, they're paying us for hours. Well, no customer's buying hours. They never have. They never have. And I think we've won that argument. That argument's over. If you're still hourly billing, you need to move to fixed pricing or value pricing. But I think you can leapfrog right to subscription. But the point is, what are you really asking your customers to pay for? If the services, let's just do a thought experiment. If the services were provided for free, what would you charge for? Isn't that a fascinating question? If the services you performed, all of them, if you do bookkeeping, if you do some tax work, if you do some advisory, it's all free. What would you charge for? Well, I think you would charge for the transformations that you guide, that you help those customers achieve their desired future state, not only in their personal life, but in their business life as well. Think about if you were starting to play golf and you wanted to take lessons. And this is a true story, actually, from one of our guests on our radio show, a guy by the name of Joe Pine, who wrote a book called The Experience Economy, which is a fantastic book. And he went to his golf pro and he said, or a golf pro, and he said, I'm a 22 handicap and I'd like to go into the single digits. Now, if you're a golfer, you know, getting into single digit handicap, very, very difficult. Takes a lot of work, takes a lot of lessons. Usually you have to go out and play with a pro to really, really hone in your game. And the guy said, well, my lessons are, $100 every hour or whatever it was, half hour, I think it was. And, he was trying to break it down into services. And my buddy Joe said, I don't want to buy lessons. I'm trying to get to a single digit handicap. If you get me there, I'll give you $10,000. Now, that's a transformation. Sure enough, the pro got him there. But here's the important point. Was the relationship and how they worked together, did it change as a result of what they were focused on? He was no longer focused on, tracking 30-minute lessons. He was focused on making him a better golfer. He probably pounded on his door some mornings and said, hey, Joe, get out of bed, man. We got work to do, right? Because now he had the same incentive as Joe did. Now, of course, he's a pro and he has to look at Joe and say, is this guy capable of being a single digit? He has to watch him swing and do some things. But once he makes that determination as an expert, well, then you can guide these transformations. And that's the really important point. And that's the highest point of value that we have. I can't say this enough. Your value is not in your services. Your value is in the outcomes it provides to your customers. And these outcomes, I'm starting to use the word transformation because I think it's more powerful and I think it's more valuable to use that wording. You're so much more, folks, than the scope of your services, than the sum of your services. We're professionals. We're not just a pair of hands. We have a brain that comes attached, which means we have judgment, we have wisdom, we can share our experience, we can look at things and tell stories and just look at things and see obvious issues that our customers could correct, that could better their business or their lives. We can keep them educated. We can keep them healthier, wealthier, and wiser, which is really, when you think about it, why we go to professionals in the first place. They keep us healthier, wealthier, and wiser. And we do at least two of those, wealthier and wiser. And I think by doing wealthier and wiser, we also keep our customers healthier too, probably physically. So these are the foundations of your model. And I kind of want to dig into this revenue model question a little bit more and show you some of the things that we think about when we're deciding what are we asking our customers to pay us for. Because my favorite definition of what it means to be a professional comes from Michael Hammer. And he says a professional is someone who is responsible for achieving a result rather than performing a task. And I love this definition because just like the golf pro example, we're going for an outcome. We're going to get our player into single digit handicap. Or if you go to an eye doctor, you're looking for the best clinical eyesight possible. You don't care about how many examinations, what kind of drops he has to put in your eye, and nor should they charge you for those things because that's not where the value is. The value is in the outcome, right? And since we're professionals, we're responsible for creating a result, for achieving a result. In fact, if I want a series of tasks done, I'll hire a day laborer. He'll mow my lawn, clean my gutters, walk my dog. That's a day laborer. That's not a professional. We're professionals. We're responsible for creating a result. So one of my favorite examples, and I've got many here, and it's really hard to pick one because there's at least three I could give you that I think are killer, but I just want to bring it down to one because of limited time. But Sinsam is one of the largest eyewear companies in Scandinavia. And when they started, they said, we are going to have people subscribe to eyewear, glasses, contacts. And it was a bunch of young people who started this business. And everybody told them in this industry, because this industry is very immature. If you wear glasses or contacts, you know what a pain in the butt this is, right? Go to the doctor, get an eye exam, get a prescription, go over here to get the glasses or go onto the website, whatever it is. There's a lot of shoe leather. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of transaction costs, as economists like to say. And it's just kind of a pain. And then heaven help you if you have to get another eye exam because there's an issue and your prescription changes, then you have to repeat the whole process again. And it's just a pain. It's just a pain. These founders wanted to simplify that. So they said, we're going to create Sinsam Lifestyle. And you subscribe, I think it's 120 euros a month. And basically what they do is, and they have brick and mortar stores. In fact, they have quite a few of them. And you can get your eye exam there, and then you pick out your frames and your lenses, and everything's covered for your 120 euros a month payment. Everything's covered. And by the way, if you need another eye exam this year, that's fine. We can handle that too. And by the way, if your prescription changes, we'll change out all your lenses, sunglasses, glasses, reading glasses, contacts, all covered. You're covered. Because they're not selling you the eye exams and the glasses and the frames. What are they selling you? What are they asking you to pay for? It's not the eye exams. It's not the lenses. You're paying and you're subscribing to perfect eyesight. Folks, that's a different model. That's a relationship model. They're basically telling you whatever you need, you're covered. Now, how many people get their eye exams 5 times a year? I can tell you it's a really, really low number. Unless there's a medical issue going on, chances are you're going to have an eye exam once every 2 years, probably, maybe once a year if you're older or you have issues coming up, if cataract building or whatever. But bottom line is they're looking at the portfolio of their customers and they're saying, on average, at this price, we can do really well with this, but we're also making it easier for our customer. They don't have the transaction costs. They just have to book an appointment, come in, and they're done. And it's covered. And I think in today's world, anything that we can do that saves customers time and saves them hassle and saves them friction, people will pay a fortune for that. And that's a big deal. And that's part of what we should be asking our customers to pay for. The fact that we're always going to have capacity for you. We're going to be able to accommodate you if you need something by tomorrow for your banker or for a loan you're trying to get or whatever it might be. You always have that capacity to serve your customers. So this model demands less customers, but a higher level of service, a more white glove type of service, because we're building and investing in that relationship, because we're trying to build that customer lifetime value. We're not looking at the math of the moment. Some customers are going to use you in months more than others, or more than they will in other months. It's okay. On average, across the portfolio, it's going to work out. And that's what this model tells you. Over here in the United States, we have a big thing going on. It's known as direct primary care. And Amazon just bought a company called One Medical. They paid $3.9 billion for One Medical. And One Medical has brick and mortar offices with general physicians. So these are primary care physicians. So they don't do surgery. They don't do cancer treatment. It's very defined what they do. But if you're a Prime member with Amazon, you can sign up. At least for a while you could. I don't know if this is still true. For $144 a year, $12 a month, and you have access to your own general physician that knows you, that's going to take the time to study your family history and be very thorough with you. Their average appointment times are 1 hour, not 5 minutes that most of us get to spend with a GP as they're heading out the door and they ask you any more questions. No, these DPC docs are completely different. This is revolutionizing how healthcare is delivered, at least in the US of A. There are over 2,000 independent DPC doctors in all 50 states. They're growing like weeds. And here's the kicker. They limit themselves to 600 patients, whereas the average DPC or the average primary care doctor in the United States has 2,400 patients. These DPC docs only have 600. Their offices do not have waiting rooms. Again, their average appointment is over an hour, sometimes 2. That's not uncommon. They'll come to your home. They'll come to your office. Their patients are admitted less into the hospital. Their patients are admitted less into ERs. Their patients take fewer drugs because their revenue model is they're not asking you to pay to cure you when you're sick. They're asking you to pay to keep them healthy. That's a completely different model. They're far more proactive. They want to see you even when you're not sick, because you might be working on weight or diabetes or some other type of comorbidity that you're trying to get under control. They usually can get those things under control. And again, I can't speak highly enough of this. These are real pioneers that have completely revolutionized the way healthcare is delivered. And yes, they don't take insurance, which means they don't have the back office of medical billers and coders and all the bureaucracy that doesn't add a nickel to a value to the relationship. They've cut all that out, and they've gone right to the customer, and their average price. And Amazon is a really low price, by the way, but the average DPC charges anywhere from $100 to $300 a month. And that's not that outrageous when you consider that a GP can usually handle anywhere between 60 and 80% of your medical needs. So it's a form of insurance too. So, and why is this so popular? Why are subscriptions, especially in a B2B context, but even in a B2C context, why are they so popular? What's going on here? Well, economists have identified this thing called the flat rate pricing bias. And what that says is we have a bias to like a flat rate price. It's predictable, it's certain. This is why most people pick a fixed rate mortgage, say, over a variable rate mortgage. And there's 3 reasons for this bias. And these biases that we all have as humans are very, very powerful. And I think it takes a lot to overcome these biases, which is why I'm such a proponent of the fixed price for subscription being all inclusive. The first one is we tend to overestimate our usage. Remember when you used to buy cell phone coverage by the minute? My guess is you picked a plan that had too many minutes. just because you didn't want the hassle of going over, paying a quarter a minute, whatever it was. And now, of course, we're not buying minutes anymore. We're buying data. My guess is you probably have an unlimited data plan for the same reason. You don't want to have to deal with it. You don't want to have to watch every day how much data you've used on your cell phone to make sure you're not going over. Same thing when we go to a buffet, right? We overestimate how much we're going to eat. The second bias that we have is called the taxi cab meter effect. This is the feeling of being nickeled and dimed. This is when you're sitting in the cab, they come to a stoplight, it's a long stoplight, and you're just sitting there watching the meter tick away. It just bugs us. I know it's only pennies or a nickel at a time or a dime at a time, but it bugs us. It just bugs us. We don't like it because we're not focused on our destination. We're not focused on the ride, the service, the conversation with the cabbie. We're focused on the price, and the price is constantly changing, and we don't like that. And folks, it's the same thing with hourly billing, and it's even the same thing with value pricing. Oh, we had a scope creep, so we have to have a change order, go to the Department of Paperwork and authorize a change order. No, you're adding friction. You're removing simplicity. You're not just taking care of the customer and just saying, hey, this is an investment in a long-term relationship. We're creating customer lifetime value here. We're not measuring the math of the moment. We're professionals. We're trying to create an outcome. And then the third effect or bias is the insurance effect. And this one's big. We're not sure how much we're going to need. We're not sure what we're going to need. And we're not sure when we're going to need it. But if we can provide those things to the customer by saying, just like SynSam, whatever you need that we can do, you're covered. If you need 3 eye exams and 3 sets of prescriptions in a year, you're covered. You're covered. It removes risk from the customer as well. And that's really important. All of these things that we're doing, frictionless, simplicity, convenience, less risk to the customer, all of these mean more price for you, a premium price. So when people say, well, why are you 50% or twice the price as the bookkeeper down the road? Now you know why, because you offer this model. It's unlimited and it's whatever they need that you're capable of doing. And that's really, really important. So with the subscription model, you're actually offering 3 types of insurance. We've talked about one, but let's put a little more meat on the bones with this. First off, you're offering insurance. Now, if you think about conventional insurance, car insurance, home insurance, you're paying money for an event you don't want, right? We buy insurance for things we don't want. I don't want to be in a car accident. I don't want to die, so I don't want to trigger my life insurance policy. I don't want to become disabled, right? We pay for things we buy insurance to pay for things that we don't want. If these things happen, then we want to be restored to where we are. And that's kind of one of the things that you're offering with subscription. If they get audited and you handle audits or correspondence with the revenue agency, well, then they're covered. They don't have to worry about it. They're not going to be nickel and dime. If they need to talk to you, if they want to have a meeting with you, it's all inclusive. So there's that insurance component. But then we're also offering assurance. Assurance with an A is a feeling of satisfaction. It's emotional. It's the whole, if you remember the Allstate insurance commercials, and I don't know if they ran in Australia or even if Allstate's in Australia, I don't think it is. But they used to run this commercial, you're in good hands. If something happens, we're here for you. Well, who's there more than their bookkeeper? I mean, bookkeepers are with their customers much more than, say, CPAs are. You folks have deeper relationships, which is why I think bookkeepers are going to glom onto the subscription model much quicker and much better than CPA firms, because you do offer that assurance. You're there. You're in the coal face. You know what they're doing. You know what their issues are, not just their accounting and bookkeeping issues, but you also know their state of mind, their emotional health, their psychology, what's going on with them, what are they worried about, what are their fears. All of these things are very, very important and very valuable. And then insurance with an E That means to secure an event, situation, or outcome. This is going to the golf pro and him saying, I ensure that we're going to get you to a single digit handicap. And by the way, if I don't, I won't be compensated. I won't earn the $10,000. So you're taking some professional responsibility here to create a result. Now, listen, if the customer's not listening to your advice and they're not taking it, then they're probably not going to achieve the transformation. Then you need to reevaluate that relationship. But customers that are curious, that are willing to pay for your advice and follow it, then those are the great customers that you can help them transform, and you can do it over and over and over. The other question we get a lot is, how do we price one-off projects? And again, I think a lot of this is a strategy and positioning question. Should you be doing one-off projects? Is that something that you're good at? Is that something that you want to do? But assuming it is, assuming there are one-off projects in your world, how do subscription companies that tend to have a price that's fixed for basically all you can eat, even though I hate that term, that's really not what it is. It's all you can eat of the food that you serve, right? You're not trying to serve every type of food. But how do you deal with one-off projects? Well, there are some strategies that we're starting to see now with firms that offer subscription. And I'm just going to use the example of cleanup. Let's say you have to clean up books for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it might be. I know these are complicated jobs. I know they're messy. I know there's a lot of uncertainty. Although I warn you, if there's too much uncertainty and you're not comfortable pricing it, then I question whether you should be doing it at all. This is not a pricing issue. This is a due care issue, right? The last thing I want to hear from a surgeon being wheeled into OR is, oh, wow, look at that. I've never seen that before. You should be able to look at something and evaluate it and be able to give them a price. Charge them an upfront price, a one-off price, before you bring them onto the subscription plan. And that's just paid. You do the work and it's done. You go down the road with subscription. Some firms make people sign up for a longer term commitment. They say you have to stay subscribed for 3 years. Folks, I can't tell you how much I don't like this, because it violates everything about the subscription business model, which means it's easy to cancel. None of us like to be locked into long-term contracts. The mortgage is bad enough, right? Mortgage in Greece, in Latin, I believe, means death grip, if I remember right, but which makes sense now. But nobody likes that. So don't use longer term commitment. You could increase the starting price of the subscription and then have it decline each month over time until that one off is paid for, and then it just flattens out to your normal subscription price. We have seen that. I do kind of like that because it shows progress every month. Their payment is going down, right? And then, of course, there's the enterprise choice where you customize the subscription plan because this customer is so unique for whatever reason that we just can't offer our normal packages to them. So we have to customize. You see software companies do this, and it's always called the enterprise choice. And the last option is, you know what? Just trust your value. Just do the work and just put them on subscription. And I know that sounds, what am I saying? That sounds ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous. We're starting to see firms do this. And I mean firms like IT consultants that come in and transfer you from, say, QuickBooks to Intact or install a CRM system. These tend to be big jobs, $50,000, $60,000 projects. And what they tell the customer is, you just pay our monthly subscription and we're going to come right out of the gate and we're going to do this big project. What it does do is it demonstrates value early on. And if you do a great job, if you exceed their expectations, you're going to have that customer for life. That's what we're starting to see. These firms have been doing this now for 2, 3, and 4 years, and they've never been burned. They're trusting their value. They're placing a bet on the relationship. Yes, we're going to come out of the gate. We're going to do this work, but we're going to keep this customer for life. And that's going to be worth a heck of a lot more than the cost of us doing the initial work, because that's going to fade away, but the annuity is going to last. And that's a really important point. So trusting your value, I think, is the way to go, but you've got to be really confident that you can do a great job. But the sooner you demonstrate value, especially in that first 90 days, which is really important, the better off you'll be. Um, the other thing is, since we're talking about kind of blowing up the scope of work, I just want to make another point. Some of the ways we're starting to see firms handle different types of customers. For example, LinkedIn has three buckets of customers. They have your normal professional who signs up, creates a profile, all of that, might be looking for a job, whatever. Then, of course, they have salespeople on LinkedIn that are trying to sell things, right? And then they have recruiters on LinkedIn, and recruiters are trying to search the human capital talent pool and hire people. Well, the recruiters get the most value out of LinkedIn because it's kind of set up for them really well. The salesmen get more value than the professionals who just are members. So they have three different buckets, and they have three pricing tiers for each one of those buckets. So you're identified as either a professional, a salesman, or a recruiter, and then you get to pick the option that's right for you. How could an accounting firm do that? Well, your tiered pricing that wouldn't have to be dependent on scope of work would be like, we'll be your pair of hands. We'll do the books historically, or you'll have access to our expertise so we can help you more in real time, or we'll be collaborators with you. We'll actually do the work. We'll do it in the cloud. We'll do it in real time. We'll go over the results. We'll do cash flow and budgeting, that type of thing. So I've seen that kind of distinction. I've seen firms differentiate customers based upon where the customer is in the stage of the business life cycle. Are they a startup? Are they in rapid growth mode? Or are they in mature and decline mode? Because each one of those modes requires different types of things from the accountant and the bookkeeper. And you can differentiate customers based upon that. You can also just do the insurance, assurance, and insurance. That's kind of an interesting thing. So insurance would include transformations, but insurance and assurance, number one and two, would only include things like, hey, we'll just take care of the books, we'll do the cash flow, the budgeting, we'll do everything we do, but we're also here for you if you need anything else. If you want us to do some advisory work and start getting into some transformations, well, then you can move up to tier 3, pay a higher price, and we can do that type of work for you. And then, of course, there's always the accountant, which is hindsight, the controller, which is insight, and the CFO, which is foresight, which I really like because, historical, current, and future directed. So those are some of the things, some of the ways that we're starting to see firms tier pricing. You can still offer different options, but it's not tied to a scope of work. It's more tied to what type of outcome are they going to get. That's what we're trying to achieve, not based on the services, because again, the services are simply a means to an end. And the other thing, last thing I'll leave you with is when we look at the history of accounting and the movement of different business models, moving from hourly billing to value pricing, value pricing, I started value pricing in 1989 in my firm. So I've been at this a while. And it was brand new. Nobody was doing it, at least not in the accounting space. There were some law firms playing with it, but not accounting firms, at least in the United States. And we just dove right in. We just started fixed pricing. This was 1989. We made every mistake under the sun. And once we got better at it, we stuck with it because the customers loved it. It was a better customer experience. And that was my North Star for doing it. That's why I wanted to do it. I wanted to create a better customer experience, give the customer certainty in price, just like I demand as a consumer when I buy things. And then I started teaching this, and I wrote a book. I first visited Australia in the year 2000. I toured all around Australia with Paul Dunn and Rick Payne of Results Accountants, and we did programs everywhere. I mean, we were in all the major states, and then also New Zealand, all around Canada, all around the United States, all around Europe as well. And it took a long time to get 2.5% of the population to adopt value pricing. And now I can tell you that we're in the early majority when it comes to value pricing. When you look at statistics of how many firms do value pricing or fixed pricing, it's 40 to 50%. That's true in New Zealand, it's true in Australia, it's true in Canada, it's true in the United States. It's somewhat less true in Europe, but it's high there as well, probably more like 30-35%. But the point is that we've won the war against the billable hour. The billable hour doesn't have any more friends. It doesn't have any enemies, but it's intensely disliked by its friends. But here's the thing, folks. The subscription economy, the subscription business model, it slides us back to the 2.5% innovators. And if you go with this model, that's where you'll be. You'll be the pioneers. You'll be the ones out blazing the trails for others. You'll take the arrows in your back, but you'll blaze the trail for others, and you'll leave behind maps for the curious. And listen, I'm all about skating to where the hockey puck is going to be, not where it's been. So I'm always looking to be on the cutting edge, and the subscription model is definitely the cutting edge. If you want to learn more about this model, and by the way, if you go to the market with a common service, you're going to command common prices. But if you go to the market with an uncommon service, you can command uncommon prices. And I think this is the big advantage that subscription gives you over even value pricing. Telling customers, whatever you need, you're covered. That's an uncommon service. That can't be compared to the scope of work that the other firm is giving them a price for. Because again, they don't know what, when, how they're going to need you, but they know they're going to need you, and they're willing to pay that flat price because of all those biases we looked at. But that price can be a lot higher because it's an uncommon service. This model gives you pricing power over and above even value pricing, and certainly over hourly pricing. So if you want to learn more about the subscription model, you can go to the Soul of Enterprise, which is the radio show I do with Ed Kless, and you can go up to show categories on our homepage, and you can pull down and click on subscription model, and you'll see every show we've ever done on subscription model. We've interviewed the top authors in this space. We've had on a direct primary care physician, Dr. Paul Thomas. You'll meet him, of Plum Health, an independent doctor who now has, I think, probably 5 doctors working with him. Great doctor, great business model. He's written some books on his transition or his launch of a subscription medical practice. And we've talked about project management. We've talked about things that are different between subscription and value pricing, and things that are still the same. And whether or not you can jump from hourly billing over value pricing right into subscription, I believe the answer to that is absolutely yes, you can. There is no reason to go from one business model to another. Changing a business model is hard work. And it would be crazy to think that I'd have to go from hourly to value and then in another 4 or 5 years move to subscription. No, just jump to subscription. You can do it. The model's flushed out, the accounting's flushed out, the KPIs are flushed out. And if you want some additional resources to learn more about the model, I recommend these 4 books. One by Teen Zoe, Subscribed. One by John Warlow, The Automatic Customer. Subscription Marketing by Ann Janzer. And Retention Point by Robert Scrobb. And you can also subscribe to Zora.com, which is a software company that does the subscription model, though it's for big businesses. They put out a lot of great content and research on subscription businesses. If you're an economics nerd, you can check out Michael Munger's book, Tomorrow 3.0, which gives the economic reasoning behind subscription model and transaction costs. And if you want to see the KPIs, that a famed venture capitalist firm looks at, Andreessen Horowitz. They have two KPI reports out there that are absolutely free, that you can get, that show you all of the KPIs that they use to value and evaluate subscription-based businesses. And of course, you can always reach out to me. I am on, I guess, X, nay, Twitter, and I'm Ron at VeraSage.com if you would like to email me. And you can also find us at thesoulofenterprise.com. And you can also join the Time's Up Book Club, which is my book on subscription business models, which I wrote with Paul Dunn. Paul Dunn and I wrote The Firm of the Future, the book that you see on the far left here. And 20 years later, that book came out in 2003. Time's Up came out this year. So 20 years later, we've moved from The Firm of the Future to Time's Up, which is the subscription business model. And there's lots of ideas in there and other practical things about pricing and KPI measurement and after action reviews and why there's no timesheets in the subscription business model, certainly not needed at all. So that data point becomes completely superfluous. So a lot of resources out there that you can get a hold of. You can also listen to our shows. We've interviewed, by the way, every one of these authors, Teenzo, John Warlow, Ann Janzer. We haven't interviewed Robert Scrobb, but we've interviewed those three, and we've also interviewed Robbie Kelman Baxter, who wrote The Forever Transaction, which is another great book. And you can, again, find all of those shows and listen to them at thesoulofenterprise.com. Just go to that tab and hit subscription model, and you'll find everything there. And again, folks, I consider you all colleagues. I love talking to the successful bookkeepers. And if you want to reach out to me and continue the conversation, send me an email, ron@verasage.com. Happy to chat with you. I consider you all colleagues, and I only want to see you succeed. And I would love to see many of you move to this model, because I think of all the professionals, bookkeepers are really well positioned to make this transition. So I wish you the best. I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. I hope you found this some food for thought, and I look forward to crossing paths with you in the future. Thank you very much.